Hello, and welcome back to the Personal Trainer Portal podcast. If I'm being completely honest, this is the second time me and Pete are recording this podcast because last week we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, and I can admit that it was my technical difficulty. My laptop completely crashed during the recording. So we recorded this whole episode, what we're going to talk about today. And I realized at the end that my Zoom had crashed, so it hadn't recorded anything apart from our Would You Rather at the start. And that is not ideal, really.
I think what's great is that Zoom had the nous to just record 12 solid minutes. That's just how much cack we talk about on Would You Rather, but it got the full solid 12 minutes of Would You Rather, and it was a good one, I feel.
Yeah.
So we've got it, and it's going to find its way on here, isn't it, somehow?
What I'll do, if people listen to this now, if I have attached it, they would have already heard it.
Oh, man. Do we need to re-record this intro again?
No, we don't. No, we're not re-recording it.
But I think
go on.
the real killer was that we've done a few podcasts, and some of the podcasts are more challenging to record, aren't they, Lewis? But this one, we're in a flow, weren't we? We're on the flow with it. Is it on it or in a flow? On or in?
You know what? I'm going to go off on a tangent here. I'm not letting myself go off on a tangent. I'm just about to, but I'm not going to.
So we'll say the podcast was flowing. Let's say the podcast was flowing. It was. And we were both really happy with the material. And then we had the devastating news. And then Lewis thought he'd saved it. And then that was a false dawn and we'd lost it. But got the Would You Rather, silver line.
Exactly. So what we are going to talk about today, episode 43, is going to be mastering conversations on the gym floor to get clients. So we speak about this a lot within our episodes and speaking to people on the gym floor. And we use this as like our main way to get clients. And if you've listened to some of our other episodes, we've talked about why you maybe shouldn't focus too much on social media. So if you can remember your answer from last week, why do you think valuable conversations are important to actually get clients for PTs?
Basically, our sort of mantra, isn't it, that we're all about building up relationships, aren't we, on the gym floor, building know, like, and trust. You've probably heard us say that on numerous podcasts, but we can't get across to you enough how important it is, because you having a conversation with a real person in front of you, and a valuable one. I'm not talking about what the football score was last week at Newcastle Leeds or anything like that, but I'm talking about a valuable conversation where you're getting to know that person, what their problem is in the gym or their struggles, maybe where they could need use some guidance from you. That is going to be massive in terms of converting that person from just a gym member into a paying client, which is what we're here for. Everyone that's listening to this podcast wants to, be building a successful business. How do you do that? You have clients, and you have lots of clients. So we're trying to get across to you the conveyor belt that we mentioned, taking someone you haven't met, saying hello, introducing yourself, and then taking them all the way through that by adding value, which we've touched on. Look back at some of the podcasts and you'll see how to add value. But you want to get them off the end of the conveyor belt into a paying client. And this is how we do it. We talk about valuable conversations, talking to people and helping people. That's how it's going to be done.
When I first started out as a PT on the gym floor all the way back in 2015, and I'd finished my level 3 PT qualification. We'd been up and running maybe about 6 to 8 weeks by this point, and I'd had a couple of clients, but I remember speaking to the managers of our gym at the time, and I was saying, look, I want to pick up a few more clients. How do I speak to people? How do I communicate with them to actually get as clients? And I remember one of the managers said, just speak to as many people as possible. Just go and speak to people. And I was like, great, right, spot on. So I was on my shift, which we used to do for the gym. We had to do 12-hour shifts, which we didn't get paid for. So I used that time as time to go and speak to people. So I thought, right, now's my time. I'm going to get some clients. I'm going to walk around the gym. I'm going to pick some lucky people to actually speak to and provide, some type of conversation with. So I started walking around the gym. You've got people in the corner doing the kettlebell swings, doing the Bosu squat bicep curl things people seem to love to do in public gyms. Then you've got the absolute hybrid 101 move. And then you've got a few people on the treadmill. So I see one woman on the treadmill. She's giving it beans. She's got the incline up. She's got the speed up. And like I said, there was a couple of people on the treadmill, but there was a group of friends I remember. So I didn't really want to go up to those. So I decided this was one of the only people who was there who was on their own. So, and they had the headphones in as well. So I walked up to them and quite confident. I'm Lewis. I've got personal training on my back. I've just finished my qualification a few months ago. So I walk up to her and I go, hello, giving me hand. This for people who are watching us on video somehow. I'm waving my hand, hello.
Oh.
And she catches me out the corner of her eye or in the mirror. And then she's running on the treadmill. So she's awkwardly trying to take her headphones out of her ears. And I'm like, hi, I'm Lewis. I'm a personal trainer here. And I can see she's looking at me. She's pressing the buttons really quickly to try and slow down. She slows the treadmill down to a walk. And then she starts to listen to me. And I'm like, hello, I'm Lewis. I'm a personal trainer here. Can I just ask what you're doing? Looking back now, it's pretty obvious what she was doing. And she said, oh, I'm running on the treadmill. I'm doing a 5K. And I was like, all right, okay. So what are your goals? And she says, oh, I just want to lose some weight. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I'm a personal trainer here. I'm more than happy to do a free consultation with you if you want. And then in the consultation, we can see what your problems are. And then you can sign up to PT as well, because I do packages of either blocks of 10, blocks of 5, and I charge £30 per session. And when I said this, I'm thinking, great, she's definitely going to want this. I've just told her that I'm a PT and I'm giving her a free consultation. And she looked at me and she was, no. Like, she almost looked at me as if I was stupid. She was like, no, I'm okay. I don't want PT. I'll think about it. And I'm like, okay. So anyway, I'm thinking, you know what? I'll give you my business card. And you can clearly tell she's maybe not really too interested. So I start going up and walking around the gym again, and I see some other people in the weight section, and I do the exact same thing. I walk up to them, introduce myself, tell them that I'm PT, tell them they can book a free consultation, and guess what happened? Every single person said the exact same thing. They said one or two things. The first thing they said was, I'll think about it. Or the second thing they said was, I'll speak to my partner. And I was like, okay, I've got some leads there. But I'd spoken to 4 or 5 people, and guess what happened? I never heard from them ever again, and never spoke to them ever again. So what I'm trying to say is, if you haven't realized already, well, actually, Pete, what did I do there wrong for the viewers, the listeners? Sorry, what did I do?
Basically, a couple of things I'd pick you up on there, on the old Lewis I'd pick up on, is that you've gone in too hard, too soon. So we've talked about this, not being car salesman, going in for the kill. First conversation, you want to build up that relationship. You, let's say, bypassed the start of the conveyor belt, middle of the conveyor belt, and just went in at the end. So this person just probably never spoken to you at all, and you've gone in for a kill. You've gone in for that consultation, for that client, and that's just all wrong. And you've probably been a bit naive in who you've targeted, people that potentially don't know they need PT, that they're busy, they're doing their own thing. You maybe should have scanned the gym and looked for those people that aren't giving it 100 miles an hour on a treadmill, incline, or whatever it was, with their headphones on as well. Looking for the people that are on the treadmills that are maybe going at a slower pace, or the people using the machines that are studying the instructions. They're the go-to people. And you should have navigated conveyor belt, had the conversation, introduced yourself, and slowly build that relationship up. No?
Exactly that. I went in for the kill, as Pete just said. If you imagine yourself, if you go to a car dealership, you're wanting to purely just look at some cars. You are going with the full intention not to buy. You walk in, you see that new Audi, and you think, look, yep, that's great. I'm just want to have a look the color, some of the specs, whatever. And then you see the car salesman come up, and immediately they're trying to sell you the features, the benefits, why it'll be great for you. And you're just like, just go. I do not want to be sold. And you're almost like, you're giving them one-word answers, and they're still trying to talk to you, and you just want them to go away. It's the same when you're on holiday and you walk past restaurants, and they've got the waiters stood outside, and they're shouting at you, trying to get you to come into their restaurant, and you're like, no, I don't want to go in your restaurant. I don't want to buy that car. It's the same thing in my situation.
I think you find with the restaurants, obviously with me being in Tenerife, I get it a lot. The people that go in the hardest are the people that you avoid the most. And it almost, touching on both examples, when someone goes in hard like that, you have your barriers, don't you? And that just puts them up straight away. You're like, oh, what excuse can I use to get out of this? Or where's the exit? I'm straight out of here. Puts people off. Whereas if you go in nice and slowly, introduce yourself, disarm them by trying to help them or see what their problem is, giving them some free value, like we've touched on, straight away that puts people's barriers down, their walls down, and they think Lewis or Pete or whoever it is, yourself, isn't desperately trying to get me in for PT. They're not just wanting one thing. They're actually here to help, wanted to get to know me, see how they could help, and then that just drops the barriers down, and that starts that relationship building off.
Exactly. I know there's a definite structure to a conversation with someone, especially if that person is a complete stranger. You see them on the gym floor and you want to spark up a conversation to the point where you're not coming across as selling your PT services. All you want to do on the first initial conversation is purely just introduce yourself and see how you can help. Ask those open-ended questions as well. And you listen to this might be thinking, I don't have the confidence to speak to what do I actually say? What's the best way to go about it? I would say is number one, remember that you're the authority figure. And I know Peter said this on other podcasts, is that you've got to remember that that person, especially if they don't know what they're doing, if they're in a gym, they're looking at some of the instructions on the different weight machines, they're a lot less confident than you are going to speak to them. So you might be anxious about going to speak to a complete stranger. I can almost guarantee that they're more nervous than you. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things you've got to get over first is that you're the authority figure. You're the person within the gym who knows what they're talking about. And I can almost guarantee if you conduct that conversation correctly and you introduce yourself correctly without coming across as salesy, that person will be a lot more open for help.
Yeah, I think obviously some of us are comfortable talking to strangers and having a conversation, but others struggle with it and you can be quite anxious about it. But you've got to remember the people in the gym are probably going to be more anxious about having a conversation. They're probably there because they want to lose weight. Lockdown hasn't been kind to them. Maybe Christmas wasn't kind to them or they over enjoyed themselves. So they're there desperately trying to lose a bit of weight or get fit, and they probably don't have a clue what to do. They just think you turn up, do a bit of exercise, and Bob's your uncle. Weight drops off. And without a structure and nutrition, I don't need to tell you any of that as being PTs we're talking to, but they don't really know what they're doing. So they're anxious, they're uncomfortable. So having someone come along and just say to them, look, hiya, my name's Pete, my name's Lewis. How are you doing? Anything you need any help with, give us a shout. Yeah. That just makes them feel comfortable straight away. And I think, Lewis, you touched on this on the last podcast on this topic we did that we sadly lost, that you went to an MMA. As long as you keep...
Yeah, I was just thinking then, I was just as Pete said, I said this on the last podcast, but I've just realized it was on the podcast which was deleted. So a few years ago, back in around 2017, I wanted to do something slightly different than the general weight training, CrossFit, whatever it may be. So I thought, right, you know what? I want to do some MMA training, kickboxing, because I watch a lot of MMA as well. And I thought, you know what? It would be something I'd like to learn. And I asked some of my friends and no one was keen for it. The gym I found was in Gateshead and I was living in Gosford at the time and I wasn't driving at the time either. So I was like, I'm going to have to get the metro. And I'd found out that the only class was on a Wednesday evening at 6:30, the one I wanted to do. Well, I finished clients at 6:00. So that meant I had to go and get the metro, which people who aren't from Newcastle, it's like the underground in London, for example, the tube. And so I got on the metro and a little bit nervous. I'm thinking, I've never been to this gym before. I don't know anyone there and I'm not going with anyone. So as I'm going there, I'm thinking, what if I make a tit of myself? What if everyone's looking at me thinking that I missed a note or like thinks because he goes to the gym, he's just going to be able to do kickboxing MMA. So I eventually get to the gym and I'm walking in and straight away, the guy at the front desk asks my name, asks what I do, and he's asking me open-ended questions about why I wanted to come there. And then he starts showing me around the gym. He's showing me where the kickboxing is, where the gym is, showing me where the changing rooms are. And he's saying, look, if you're a beginner, it's absolutely fine. Well, I'll speak to the coach who's taken today's class and I'll let him know and I'll make sure that you're comfortable. And that lasted what, maybe 5 minutes? And straight away, that put me at ease. And the reason it put me at ease was because he didn't try and intimidate me. He didn't try and sell me anything. All he did was put me at ease. And especially for myself at the time, because like I said, I didn't know anyone. I'd never been there before. I'd never done a martial art, especially not stereotype, but some people are in MMA, boxing, kickboxing, whatever, in that area. They can be some quite scary people. And I did feel a little bit nervous, but just having that person just calm me down and almost put me at ease was massive. And you want to think about that when you're speaking to people within the gym as well.
Yeah, I think what you've got to take from Lewis's story there is you need to be that person on reception. So that person on reception that spoke to Lewis, took the time to ask him a few questions, took the time to show him where everything was, took the time to talk to the coach and tell him there's a new person coming to the class. That is just massive. And that made all that anxiety and uncomfortableness disappear. So I think you just need to put yourself in the shoes of that person and think, right, when a gym member's in, I'm going to be that welcoming person. I'm going to be that person that puts their mind at ease, because when they maybe want to go into coaching or PT, who are they going to remember? They're going to remember the person that they met the first time that just took away that anxiety, because potentially when you PT them, you're going to make them feel comfortable. You're going to have them in a environment where they're working hard, but feeling good with it. And that's planting the seed, I suppose, essentially at the
Exactly.
start.
I think as well, when you first speak to someone on the gym floor, the first thing you want to do after introducing yourself maybe is being relatable to them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you've got to be relatable, because quite often, like Lewis mentioned down the MMA sort of gym, people can look quite intimidating. And as a PT, people look at you and think this person's almost not human, because they're going to the gym all the time. They're eating, what they should be eating. They're not maybe binging on a weekend. They're doing all the right things. They've got a good physique on them. Whereas Joe Bloggs that's come in is probably overweight, struggle on a weekend, overeat. So you saying to them, you relate to them, you have similar struggles in how you've overcome them, things like that, just makes you that person, and think to themselves, everyone has similar problems, but they've navigated it or overcome it in a certain way. Maybe I could do that as well.
Exactly. So when you first speak to someone, you want to introduce yourself and then you want to ask open-ended questions. You can ask what are your problems, what you're struggling with in the gym at the minute, and then just let them talk. Try and get as much information out of them as possible. Once you've got that, you can ask their goals, and then you can be relatable as well, as Pete just said there. Talk about some of your clients who you've worked with or are currently working with who have the same problems as them. And again, you're not mentioning your PT services to sell. All you're doing is purely just mentioning that your clients struggle with the same things as they do, because people want to know that their problems are being solved by someone like yourselves. And this sort of indirectly links to planting the seed, because if you ask their problems and struggles and then you ask their goals, and then you can reply back to them and say, it's funny you should say that because I'm actually working with someone who is going through the exact same problem as yourself. And this is what we are doing to overcome that. And this is what we have done up to now. And then straight away, you don't need to say, if you want to be my client, you can do. All you're doing is just planting the seed, and then you can show some value.
I think it's really important as well, giving a real life example, whether it's me or Lewis, and we're saying someone comes in, their struggles binging on a weekend, then they're doing really well during the week, and then the weekend comes around, they don't train and they eat far too much, go out on the piss, whatever it is. And you say, actually, I had a client called Sarah, she had a similar struggle. On the weekend, she would like to go out with her friends or family, and go off the rails a bit. So what we did is we banked some calories. So during the week, we'd cut her calories a bit, we'd up her training a touch, and then at the weekend, we'd make sure she'd get some steps in, but then she had more calories to play with. That's a real life example of someone. And then you could even say, well, Sarah that had the same problem as you that we did this approach with, this is her now. This is her before and after. And that might be a post on social media. It might be just some pictures you have in your file or whatever it is. And then the person's thinking, bloody hell, So I've got a similar problem. Lewis or Pete solved that by doing this, and look at the results. That plants a seed that gives them physical proof that their problem can be resolved or overcome, which is massive.
Exactly. So just to summarize what we're saying here is don't do what I used to do, because I can almost guarantee if you're listening to this, you have done it as well. Don't sell too soon. Don't come across as pushy. Purely ask open-ended questions, find out their problems, struggles, what the goals are, be relatable to them, make them feel at ease, maybe tell a story about some of the people you have worked with, or maybe even it's your own story, and then provide some value by maybe showing them some exercises, and without even mentioning your PT services. You haven't mentioned anything. All you've done is mention about the clients you work with, and then you can get them to potentially go away, practice some of the things which you've spoken about, and then you can meet up again the week after. But again, it's all about providing value and actually providing valuable conversations with people so they've built some known trust. And then in the future, that's when you can start to speak about PT and sell your services. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, I think that was really good. I think the only thing to cover again there is obviously structuring the conversation. The more you do it, the more you practice this, the more that you have a loose sort of script. And I'm not talking about walking around with a script of paper, but practicing it with your friends, family, just of the type of things that you can say. Thinking of other clients and their similar problems is a great way to get it in your head so it flows. You don't want it stop starting thinking and you don't know what to say. You want it to flow.
Exactly that. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is the second time we've recorded this, so I hope you appreciate that. Episode 43, Personal Trainer Bottle Podcast. See you in the next one. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.